So now I'd like to thank you all for joining us for the Poetry Alive, an opportunity to listen to some of our local poets recite their lovely work in honor of National Poetry Month. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Garrett Sitz, our lovely volunteer facilitator for the Poetry Writers Workshop.
Thank you so much, Sadia. It means so much to me and to my poets to have the opportunity to work with Gail Borden to present this program and also to have our poetry group. We've been really lucky that we've been able to continue to meet even during this pandemic through Zoom. One of the things I do want to tell you is that because of Zoom, we were able to connect with one of our poets who is coming from Maine. And when you look at your bios, you can see that she does come from Maine. I'm sorry that one of our poets, Jenny Gordon, you'll see her name on the bios, was unable to be with us today. But we are very, very, very sad, but we love her. We are a family, okay? And it's a wonderful thing. And I am so proud of my poets. I call them my poets. So without further ado, we will begin. Thanks so much for coming.
Who's the greatest? Desire, hated so. Robert Browning, son of a banker, hated school, preferred gold. Sunset views to rhyme. Desire, forevermore. Edgar Allan Poe, your raven was a genius. Muse magic, A+. Dylan Thomas drank, and Robert Frost, snowy days are remembered best. And let's not forget Ginsberg's angry howl, man wolf, and is the road he took, desire, Octu, Sylvia Plath Rath, under a Nazi lampshade, admired ovens, Bob Dylan. Can't be, but oh, he's a poet. What a crappy voice, desire, glass of hope, Anne Sexton drank while her shadow ate the moon, moonless. E. Cummings, born a herd of etceteras, heard from town to town, words, took a walk on a beach with Rod McEwen, counting his money, his etceteras, green, leaves of grass are green, as Whitman's Song of Myself still celebrates we, the people. And in the same manner, celebrators Carl Sandburg, T.S. Eliot, James Joyce, Langston Hughes, Ezra Pound, Emily Dickinson, and so on, wrote their own etceteras. How? Ogden Nash? Your rhymes are prime time for a lifetime of nickel and dime, overtime rhymes. Whoa, who's next? Me. My soul laughs, tickles too. I get goosebumps from a borrowed Nazi lampshade, and with a stack of Rod McEwen books, inspiration writes my own etceteras as to who's the greatest. Me.
Blooming in place. The garden knows no pandemic, but maybe the pandemic knows the garden, for it seems to have waited until that just right moment to show up, timing its appearance with the snowdrop and reaching its height during the reign of the daffodil. My gratitude explodes when I look out the window, for the garden reminds me of reality, and that is, pandemics will come and go, but blooming is forever.
A note from solitude. High up in my turret, the briared thorns are no longer a hindrance, but a welcome protection from pandemic. No false suitors hang moldering within the crimson blooms, impaled time and again by the vicious thorns. In these ghastly, frightening days, time and again the thorns have retreated, allowing the mourning doves to perch atop the balcony railing, cooing, or letting me out surreptitiously in my timid forays out for food and medicine. I see shadows of death and tentative smiles, anger and fright when the 6 foot barrier is breached. Sideways glances search for a reason to flee. A cough, a sniffle, a sneeze. Each panic inducing symptom, the bane of my springtime existence. Should I wear a placard? I'm not allergic. I'm allergic, not contagious. Or maybe a scarlet letter A would suffice. I do my best to not to linger over long, never knowing when a dreaded sniffle will manifest, despite all the pills and sprays. And don't get me started on the wheezing from the virus I had in January. Don't walk too fast or ascend stairs too quickly. A few missteps, and I sound like a dying bagpipe. I chant in my mind, take it slow and remember to breathe. Safely back in my sanctuary, blessing the day and all it has manifested, thinking my early years and my adaptation to solitude. Some would call the briar thorns a manifestation of my illness, depression and appearing as the blood red blooms, and darker things, the nasty hooky thorns. And of the false princes, parts of me that never breached the core. So I sit here in enforced solitude, my illness wrapped around me, keeping me safe, contrarily enough, by the very habit that once inspired its inception isolation.
Beyond the yellow brick road. Beautiful day as white clouds cross a deep blue sky. Cold breeze enters through the open windows, so contrary to the feelings inside. The park beckons with shaded benches and life that is not felt here. Music flows with Elton John singing beyond the yellow brick road, a road once traveled on in Spain across a country so diverse, ending in sunset, horizon that continued on and on and on, with promises of a fulfilling life, a life that has become more challenging as diversity diverges into chaos, looking for answers to decades-old conflicts. New generations with the knowledge of the past may find the answer and solution for a newer world. Before that, how many must die as nature comes to us in full force? How many must die before we see our faults and learn the wisdom that is there before our eyes? How long must we walk beyond the yellow brick road before we find home?
The coming of a new season. I touched my spring clothes this morning. The pink sweater that hung pressed against the tan. Underneath it, short sleeve, cardigan atop, if March winds should bite. I touched a shirt of yellow dotted Swiss forgotten about, but born again like the sound of music, and worn again. A rerun paired with, are those shorts or pedal pushers? And will people soon be pedaling down lanes? And will we hold hands, those of us left to couple and walk two abreast, hardly inches apart, along paths of hope? I touched my spring clothes this morning, the white filmy blouse that I had on the day the virus took my Angeline.
Alive. I'm proud of myself. I did not drown, did not clutch at my chest, legs did not wear out. I crossed the length of the pool on the length of one breath. I found my sea legs on the undulating deck. My skin's hardly burned, my lips hardly dry, my feet hardly sore, and my soul is alive.
Being. A calligraphy brush dipped in water travels over stone in gestures vanishing into molecules, into air, every moment an act of creation and erasure. Starlings luff and billow across the dusky blue, inking arcs and spirals, swellings and dips, every act a moment of erasure and creation, a choreography of means we may only imagine, yet we
Water. What is water? A love between two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. Can hold up the sky, transparent and odorless substance, flows as liquid in rivers, streams, and ocean, creating many new paths for boats and ships, acts like a mirror, expressing the beauty of nature, quench our thirst and cool us down, cleanse our body and soul, is everywhere, appears in the form of pearly morning dewdrops hugging the flower petals, solid ice and snow renovating the mountains, mirage in the desert, raindrops falling on the ground. How blessed we are to have a water on our planet Earth. It is an essential fuel, world's first and foremost medicine, a necessity of life. Without it, humans, animals, and plants won't survive.
Stalwart trees. Stalwart trees soaring skyward, reaching up as though reaching for the sun, to unfold their arms and cradle the light, warmth, and life, holding in grateful thanks for all that's living on this earth.
Traveling by train. Traveling by train along the Gray River, we passed intermittent trees, black branches fringed with snow. As the day lightened, water ripples reflected buildings along the banks, and vapor rose to meet the rain. In one tree up ahead, a dark mound filled the branches, perhaps an abandoned nest left over from last spring. Then a white patch widened at one end, grew larger, lengthened, and curved upward until a bald eagle unfurled complete. As we flashed by, the eagle took off and soared with wingspan broader than human height in silhouette against the brightening sky.
God with the little fish. The God of right and wrong is the God with a little fish. But there is another one, the one whose sun shines on the evil and the good. There is the one that does all that trading, you know, an eye for an eye and all that, the transactional God. The other one turns the other cheek. There is the God of yeah buts, but there the other one says yes and. One God lives inside a little tiny box with no door. The other one is too big for that. Both live inside of us. We are the mouthpiece. The one we worship is the one who speaks. To which God do you want to give voice?
My cat keeps staring at me. My dog won't get off my lap. I have stared back at her, but she really doesn't blink. Those green eyes that I love so well now look evil. He takes up a lot of room on my lap. It is difficult to reach over him and work. He will lick my hand, change position, and fart. It's interesting how an interspecies community works. One is the other clingy towards the human they share space with. I know in our way we love one another. Too much time together, though, can change the dynamics of our little home. So my cat stares at me with her green eyes, and my dog shifts on my lap and shows his love with another fart.
The world is not flat. Dead stars, not so dead, awaken as I cross the solar system on foot, whose starry shine will I mirror. The flat society, they mock Kepler's law and ride flying chariots circling the sun in time. Will they learn the world is not flat? Will they? By way of roof and ladder, I reach to black holes and eat anything and everything. My cereal, what happened? Must be the universe, home to aliens, are independent contractors that have built the pyramids. Ouija boards must be. I talk to them, don't you? Liberal ghosts. Answer to the science of a banana must be just that. Yum. The universe, as conservatives do, they believe the world is flat and money talks. In their world, it must be. The universe of climate change deniers deny they're denying it. Ignorance must be bliss. Just bliss must be. Isn't that enough? Questions linger as witchcraft pies have us eating lies of humans riding dragons on an asteroid belt, holding up my pants. Gotta pull that up. And with talking bread in my wallet, it must be just that. Listen.
Stonescape. I place my hands against flat rock, hold my breath, lower my face into its surface, open my eyes, sink into a world of grays and browns, surface warmth quickly fading to cold. Dark shapes swim through layers of stone, great granite whales, pods of smooth limestone, long veins of wriggling marble eels, schools of quartz glittering in the low light. Here and there, the fossilized remains of the drowned. Their movements are slow, tectonic, and subtle. Sudden cracks in old caves, bubbles of rising gas. Pressure grows deeper as I descend, until I reach the volcanic layer, alive with heat and promise, the cries of rebirth. I withdraw my senses, fading taste of salt. Rocks and stones are droplets splashed around me. I wade ankle deep through a puddle of sand and cross the sunlight zone soil with its algal bloom of grasses and trees.
Text, span, year. I'm still here waiting, waiting for his next text, waiting for real life to begin again. Our words span continents, leap oceans, race across deserts. Simple words. Babe, you there? Yeah, babe, I am. I miss lipstick, personal space, smiles, and frowns, and hugs between those who don't live together. Even a state-old handshake would be welcome, as would working out without a bubble of social distancing. I miss dancing, not with myself, but with a real human. I miss dance space, going to parties, gatherings, dressing up not because you exist, but because you're here with me, and dressed to the nines as well. I miss, babe, you there? Yeah, babe, I am.
Author's note: in music, an augmented fourth, also known as a flatted fifth, has been called the devil's interval because of its dissonant sound. Scars, a constellation of sorrows and terrors, ugly, repellent, a tally of ravages unscreamed, traces of shame averted from my kind, shocking in glimpses. How How can this be what I have become? A text in red and pink and brown, a score of devil's tones, augmented rages, flatted fists. Were you to read this tracery in Braille, eyes closed and open heart, you would come to know your soul and how at last to love.
Iris. In a breeze, the deep purple lop-eared iris fold and unfold. Nearby, translucent lavender fleur-de-lis with fertile tongues perch above striped green leaves. From such loveliness, we wish we could learn the secret we imagine of lily buds rising without pain from the bare ground year after year. We'll only know, like Daphne, when we stop knowing anything at all.
When something is too sweet. I am aware when something is too sweet and needs salt. I know when I am called. Did you give me these wings so I might fly to these places, spaces between duty and beauty? I know not who I am, but I surely know what I am and what I'm meant to do.
It is time to slow down. It is time to slow down. Stay mindful. Watch the birds in the meadows. Admire the flowers in the garden. Chat with the friends in the neighborhood. Have a cup of hot tea. Read an amazing book. Play some relaxing music. Sing your favorite song. Go for a walk with your loved one. Say how much you treasure her or him in your life. Cherish this present moment. There is more to life than making it go faster.
Belated verse for International Women's Day. Past promises spent on angles and spangles. High tower, now low tower. Fierce angels on horseback come riding in, and the dust flies.
Harlequin harlots. They follow a format, those damned romance novels. And those little girls, they fall for that stuff. Then they spend the rest of their lives stuffing more than their toes on it. It doesn't stop them, though, for no matter how old we get, we ladies long for the fairy tale and wonder what you men are thinking. And all of us are left like deer in the headlights, trying to figure out what the hell went wrong.
Old, boring marriage. Old, boring marriage keeps on keeping on. Separate bedrooms, same stairs, but she gets the right side. Since she's always right. Chainsaw, she gets that too. Cut the house in half. She gets the whole kitchen. He gets all the doors. Hello, want dinner? She asks. How nice, you'd cook for. Go next door, she says. Plugs in the chainsaw, cuts the meat. I am next door, remember? I get all the doors.
Morning Creek. I'm a guppy nibbling around the edges of 6:47 a.m., darting in for small bites at the clock and zipping back under the protection of the covers. I'm an old carp slowly stealing one-eyed glances at 6:48 a.m. I take in a slow gulp of water and then roll back over. At 6:49, my green head extends out from my shell, exposing red and yellow stripes on my painted neck. Not long now, but not now. My webbed front feet pull me back down into the murky waters. One by one, I peek at the minutes flowing slowly by, till I give up and unearth myself from the bottom of the creek bed and I rise into the day like a retreating catfish.
The rain splashes and thunder. Watching through the window, I wonder, is this Mother Nature's whirling dance or just a heavenly romance? The swinging trees and lightning, the scene is so brightening, sometimes pouring, sometimes drizzling. Those nomadic raindrops, the crawling pulse on my window, or those moving umbrellas, people holding them not so mildly, the wind propelling them wildly. Splendid sky and starry night, a mirage of rhythmic flight, holding me and my imagery tight. Now that rain has halted, sight of the full moon has exalted. Another angelic show has begun for the mankind to have a stunning fun.
The house. The night before the funeral, I slept in their unaired basement, sprayed with freshener to cover the floor drain's acrid breath. After the funeral, in the laundry room off the kitchen, we scrubbed and scraped rain-soaked loam from the graveyard that sucked at our shoes. White lilies in their clay pots watched in the kitchen as people clustered and drank tea or sat in the living room to keep the widower company, listening to his disbelief as he recalled endless details of the care he had given her in the 6 years since her stroke. Back at home, my open suitcase exhaled basement damp. Miasma of graveyard loam and overripe lilies seeped through my empty house and settled in.
Plants are dying. Plants are dying in my house, begging for some light. Plants are crying in the night o'er their sorry plight. Yes, I do water them, hoping for the best. Do I overshower them? Is this some kind of test? Perhaps I do. I've not a clue how much they really need. Sprinkle them or over soak? It's a matter of degree. Well, it's dead, my neighbors said. Throw it in the trash. I guess I should. I just meant good. It perished in my lap.
Robin, you're mute.
Sorry, everybody. Masking. I've never liked shoes. My feet don't hurt when they're not in them. I remember those signs. No shirts, no shoes, no service. Before them, I could be barefoot. It's hard to be an American, our independence or our courtesy. Which do we choose?
Wheels. My wheels don't get locked. I am relentless. I am open. I am there. I do not slow down. When your wheels are locked, you're like dead. When our wheels are spinning, we're also stuck. I will not allow my wheels to be locked in any position. I will remain aeristic, indefinite, indeterminate, flocculent, muddled, addled, like a clump or a tuft of wool. I will remain liquid, free.
Interstate games. Shadows race along the grassy divide, southbound cars reaching for northbound semi, cars stretching out as the sunlight slides, looking for 80-mile-per-hour high fives. Pull down the visor as the road veers right. Now the shadow cars circle around behind. Count to 3 while the overpass hides, then tag your it on the other side. Soon all shadows collapse into a pile while the cars keep laughing into the night.
Wave. Slow down, because this loving healing is not about to run out. This healing loving is not about to vanish, die without warning, pierce my heart, break with me via telephone, never saying why nor another word, is not about to be wholly devoured by stronger, faster, greedier mouths who leave not a crumb in their voracious wake. Is not about to tell me I don't belong, there's no room, I'm too messy and emotional to bear, that I must transmogrify from inside out in order to fit in or get out. I will not go hungry tomorrow if I eat only what I truly desire today and not one grain of rice more. Even should I choose to fast today, there will be another banquet spread tomorrow of which I may partake as I desire, because this loving healing is not dying, is not leaving, is not a no disguised as welcome, is not plotting behind my back, and far, far from slipping away, is as immense and ever giving as an ocean, embracing the shore without restraint again and again, without pause, without doubt, without ever an end, and each time for the lusciously first time ever. And I may simply marvel at the beauty and magnificence of each wave's grace and power over and over and over until I find I am ready to dive back in and feel that caressing endlessness move through me over and over and over until I viscerally dance in every molecule with the revelation that I am the wave I so desire.
Hands. I saw a lady once who couldn't turn the pages of her Bible, nails so long and painted a deep shiny red, useless. I shook hands once with a man whose work had turned them into rough sandpaper. His grip was firm, the hands told his story, earthy. I look at fingernails so black with earth embedded underneath. The fingers dip deep into the rich black soil formed by the weighted pressure of ice. Homey. I watched my mother-in-law as she worked in her kitchen, her hands the most used and important tool she had. They were so rough that she could take a hot pan out of the oven and not flinch. No cream could soften them. Her short nails never, ever felt polish over them. Instead, the roughness of her hands spoke of the love she had for the people she served lovingly.
The moon rises full. The moon rises full tonight against the darkening blue, like a promise, whole again, out of reach.
The proud boy. Such a small little life the proud boy lives, so certain of his own understanding. He knows right from wrong, by golly, and he's not afraid to tell you. Drags you to church, he does, pours criticism all over those Black lives that matter. He never tastes of the in-between, where the loving God lives, or is it where the living God loves? The in-between is vast and full of surprises, to delight and terrify. Chock full it is, and never to be known. For not knowing is the most terrible of all. for the proud boy.
January 4, 2021. Questions bark by the hydrant, sniffing as if this poem can smell it. Am I a loyalist to a poem like a dog is to his beloved master? Dogs can appreciate what's old, what's new, subtle or mellow. The wind gives voice to a bark in the poem. A poem like mine strives. The seconds turn to minutes. They slips into tonight. Obsession is the topic. A poem, a day. Dogs and humans are alike. Familiarity, a safety net, like my poem that needs today to say, I did it.
Imagine the wind. Who or what could imagine the wind if it never was? Who or what could conceive such a thing? Breathing past you and me, invisible but felt. Moving things gently, like a whisper, or roaring through town, treetops going down. Who or what could evolve to the wind? From beginning to now, molecule upon molecule, splitting apart from dust spinner to storm. Where did it start? Who or what became the wind? From nothing to something in the blink of an eye, returning to nothing in the length of a sigh. Who or what could imagine the wind?
Acacia leaves haiku. The acacia leaves delicious gourmet foodstuff. Giraffe reaching out.
Frank at Joy's, December 2020. He's lost his mind. It's the last hurrah. There's not much to do to call it back. I wait for the moment a wind blows away the cobwebs, the ganglia and mitochondria webs that have torn or are in tatters. His love matters. He totters. There's no more walking. Striding has been long gone. The crossword puzzles are squares to him. What are these numbers for? His mind is gone, lost down a path only he can go. Help me, he says in his sleep. In a dream, he says, Hail Mary, full of grace. This is a safe place. This place, I have him in my house. I try not to lose my own mind in sadness, to fears of what might be ahead for all of us. I do not want him to suffer. I answer non sequiturs, questions out of sync. He understands food and we communicate that way. A minor victory today. He took his pills. He let me put the drops in his eyes. If glaucoma took hold, he'd be blind to me, his most devoted lifeline.
Sea of silence. I'm lost and lonely in the sea of this pandemic. There's nothing here but mundane routine tasks. Dishes again, towels again, floors again. I have dust bunnies the size of dragons. My plants are crisping. My laptop languishes untouched. I languish untouched. Social distancing has preserved my personal space to the detriment of my reclusive tendencies. Masks mask even friendly faces. Eyes are left undisguised, but free to express the subtle hostility that passes for geniality nowadays. I hesitate to speak aloud to these masked strangers, reserving my few words as questions for store clerks. They, at least, are guaranteed to respond in a pleasant manner. No unspoken rules govern their responses, except a guarantee to respond. Unlike my neighbors who meet my greetings with surprise and silence, aghast at my apparent ability to speak. The sea of masks hides disillusionment and fear. I shop with a fellow survivor, lest we both be overwhelmed by the negativity and forced disconnection. Yes, I had COVID back in early January of 2020 when no one knew what it was. I puzzle over the chain of infection. Somewhere in that post-holiday siege on sales, I was taken. Somewhere in the sea of recovery, this fast-moving, creeping year has left me with a lingering fatigue that looks like laziness or apathy, or return of my double depression, which is actually a diagnosis, not my being coy. So I swim in the choppy waters of my isolation, reaching out with both hands to grasp at a voice on the other side of the line, the living person behind the text, even clutching the bare bulb from an automatic email communique. I am adrift.
Marcia.
It was less. The feeling of a merry-go-round. When I was 3, there was a blackboard that hung on the wall in the kitchen. I loved that blackboard. I would draw circles on it, around and around and around in white chalk. I was drawing a merry-go-round. I was drawing the feeling of riding a merry-go-round. One day I drew a really good feeling of a merry-go-round. I stepped back and looked at it. The feeling just swirled inside of me. I told Mother that it was the best merry-go-round I had ever drawn. She looked at it and didn't understand. I understood that she didn't understand and was sad for her. I left that feeling of a merry-go-round up on that blackboard for a long time. I didn't need to draw anymore. For every time I looked at that drawing, the wonderful feeling of going around and around and around came back. That's what art is all about, feelings. When children show me their art, I don't ask what it is. I ask them to tell me about it. They always explain their work more with the emotions that they feel than the marks on the paper.
Devil at the door. After the evening's parade of action figures, princesses, monsters, pirates, soldiers, light faded until no one came, and quiet stretched to darkness in the cold rain. Later, as the electric jack-o'-lantern stared out the window, the doorbell rang and a single tall figure appeared in. Fire red flared, dimmed, flared within the gargoyle head to backlight the leering, malevolent face. If I didn't open the door, this devil could burn down the house. If I did, its blast could sear me where I stood, my hands bubbling, crackling, peeling away to raw meat, my eyes scorched blind. As the devil lingered on my stoop, I opened the door and offered the candy-filled plastic pumpkin. A soft voice said, "Trick or treat." "Have a few," I said, scooping a handful of wrapped chocolates into the open bag. "Thank you," the figure said, and rejoined the dad standing on the sidewalk a few feet away.
The storm, COVID-19 2020. A storm was a brewing across silent oceans, unseen raindrops waiting to be. A storm was a lion over the mountains, invisible heartache hanging from trees. The storm was a comin', we had our warning, political figures too late to see. The storm is a walkin', cross lonely backyards, quiet its footsteps, no aim to please. The storm is a stand-in, hovering outside, seeps under doorways under the trees. The storm is a fallen on barren rooftops. Nobody hears it. Nobody screams. This storm washed the White House of all of its semblance, all its resemblance to what it should be. This storm grabbed our notice. Nobody told us what it might mean. This storm could restore us, bring us together, break down the walls of disharmony, or it could end us as we sit angry, empty, in antipathy.
Tulip. A dark orb opens its closed, stilled fist of a heart into a thrum and beat. Blinded by pressing darkness and relentlessly in solitude, tender with translucence of newborn skin, it pushes through coarse, dense earth, which has held it both safe and captive in a ceaseless pursuit of a sun it knows, with no proof and beyond all reason, is. Breaking embraces of constraint and dormancy, it unfurls itself, an audacious, wild green spear of declaration, into the creamy blue, and kissed by breezes, begins to dance.
Well, that ends our program. Like poetry makes you want to dance. I'm so delighted that you were able to come. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. And you can also contact me through the library. And if you have specific ideas or questions about the poets, I'll make sure to pass them on to them. I am incredibly proud of my group. I think they have done a terrific job, not only writing their poems, but presenting them over time. Each poet has grown so much. And some people, when they started, they were really uncomfortable presenting their work. And I think now everybody does a pretty good job. So thanks again for coming. And we'll do it again next year, hopefully live in the library.